Hey, everybody, this is Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts, and we are talking about travel tonight. It's going to be so much fun. So thank you for watching. And if you're watching live, type your questions in or tell us where you'd love to travel. We have a wonderful group tonight on the line. Dr. Greg Basham is here. Greg, how are you? Greg, are you with us?
I'm doing fantastic. It's good to see everybody today.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I apologize. Jeff Whipple is with us. Jeff, how are you?
Hey, y'all, doing well.
Thank you for being here. And Deb Vernack is here. Deb, how are you?
I'm doing great.
So this is a really interesting crowd. I went on Facebook and sort of was saying, hey, let's talk about travel a little bit. Who might want to be a part of a conversation? And we had a couple more people that had to miss out at the very last minute that were planning to be here. But I loved that Greg and Jeff and Deb all said, hey, yeah, I'd like to talk about travel. And they all have interesting connections. So Greg, I've known you a really long time. When you were band director, you actually played some of my music with your band, and now you're a principal. Introduce yourself for just a second and tell us a couple of the places you love that you've been.
Played some of your music. Yeah. The band got significantly better when you started doing our arrangements. So, what are some of the places that I really enjoyed? Listen,
first introduce yourself. You're a principal. Where are you?
Sorry, Greg Basham. I'm a principal in Tampa, Florida at King High School. And prior to that, I was a principal at a middle school, and then spent a little time in the district office, and then was a band director for 13 years, which is, going to be, obviously throughout this is going to be the fact that music really led to being able to do a lot of traveling, and is still very instrumental in the traveling that I do now. So
very cool. And tell us a few of the places you've been that you loved.
My favorite places, Switzerland, absolutely very high on the list. And up until last summer, Switzerland was the top choice. But the last summer, I had a chance to go to Bad Hofgenstein, Austria. And we can talk about that a little later. But it's beautiful. It's Austrian Alps, and they have an Alpentherm there, which is a big fancy word for a place, a spa to relax. And there's a mineral pool, and the mineral pool's 72 degrees all year round. And it was really, really fantastic and beautiful. So
I love it. I would be happy to be there right now. That sounds wonderful. So Deb, you have a connection with me that's really interesting because you were a student of mine when I was a band director back in the day. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm by training a clinical social worker, although I'm taking a hiatus right now for a little while, and I'm working as a first grade teaching classroom assistant. And I'm a mom of 3, and I live in the Boston area. I have not been to a place that I have not loved. I've yet to find that place. Of course, there's been challenges, but no place that I have been, I never want to come back here. Some of the places that I have loved going to that were just sort of significant, I would say, Japan, India, East Africa, and I don't take your pick of the European countries. It's just, so anyway, I love travel. I'm very passionate about it. I think there's a lot of wonderful things that can come from it, and I'm thrilled about the talk tonight and to hear from you all.
Well, thank you, Deb. Wow, that sounds interesting. I can't wait to hear about some of that travel. It sounds really cool. And Deb, I want you to know that, of course, I knew you as Debbie.
Yes. That's okay. And Nowak. I heard you say Vermont. Yeah.
That's right. So just warning everybody if I call her Debbie, but
that's okay. That's what my family calls me, Debbie. It's okay.
No, but
I'll answer to it.
I was so happy to see you when you responded to us talking about travel. And when I think of you and all in those times, I always smile and have really, really fun.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah.
So Jeff, I know you because we've had some conversations about the marching arts, and you are like a super kind of go-getter, on the move, doing great stuff guy in the marching arts. So tell us about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So I just moved to Ohio, actually from Arizona. So really taking the travel thing to heart and getting around the country here as well. Do the marching arts full time. So I work with Centerville High School here in Ohio, and in the summer I'm with the Mandarins. And travel, same thing. The marching arts, of course, really opens you up to be able to see so many unique spots. And a personal goal I have in life is to get to every continent. And we've got 5 crossed off the list so far, which is great. I like to try to find some of the more adventurous spots or things that maybe are a little bit more off the beaten path. So I've gotten to kind of trek through the jungles of Costa Rica, been to Mount Everest, just got back. I live in my favorite Lord of the Rings life in New Zealand at the end of last year. So anything that is a little more adventurous is right up my alley.
Wow, I love it. So it sounds like we've got a great group here tonight, and I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite travel stories too. So it's going to be really fun. So Greg, I'm going to go back to you. Just before we start talking specifically about some of the places we've been and why we loved it, just the benefits of travel. I think it's really important in sort of broadening your worldview of what the world is like and what other people are like. What would you like to say about that? How you think that benefits people that you've met?
Well, so so every couple of years, Tim, I still do a thing where it's Florida Ambassadors of Music. So, and we take students from across the state of Florida and we go on a 5-country tour of Europe, right? And so one of the things that I talk to the families about when we do it is that what the reason why I still do is I in all honesty, when I first got approached back in 2010 to take some of my own kids from my band program, I told them no like 4 times because I had done drum corps for 7 years and I just had visions of sleeping on gym floors and schlepping our stuff on and off of a bus, a charter every day, like a concert every day. And all I was going to be doing is moving stuff all over Europe. I was like, no, I zero interest in doing that. And so Don McTavish called me back and he's like, Greg, just go one time. Just go one time. If you don't like it, you never have to go again. So I went and it turned out to be a great trip. And I was like, well, I'm probably only going to go once because I really don't think I'm going to enjoy this. Like, yeah, do I want to see these parts of Europe? Yes, but I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. So I'm going to go once. So I took my wife and I took my daughter. And what I tell everyone is what the thing that I appreciate about it the most is, one, how much smaller it made the world for me personally. I'd only been out of the country 2 other times. I'd been to Edinburgh, Scotland, with a musical theater group I was with. And then I'd been to London, and that was it for like 3 days. And going and standing in Notre Dame and being able to see the Eiffel Tower and going to Dachau concentration camp and being able to be in Germany and going to Venice, Italy, just put a realism on all these places that I read about in books as a kid, right? And history becomes so much more alive when you're at the White Cliffs of Dover and you're going across the English Channel, right? And then you arrive in Calais, France, and then you see the red poppies in the fields, And so it made my world smaller. But the more important part is my 10-year-old kid, it made the world smaller for her. And then she reaped benefits that trip as she went through world history class and as she read poems and read works by all of these authors that that you read about as you're going through school. And it changed her context for what she was doing. And so, that's the biggest thing I think that comes out of it and why I enjoy it so much. I love going to see stuff. I'm a big people watcher and I love going to watch people, in other countries to see how things are different. And I come back always talking about how it's different. My wife laughs because I'm walking around. I'm your typical middle-aged man now. I'm walking around in the grocery store checking prices on stuff. Wow, they only pay this here. And geez, you can't even find a jar of peanut butter in the United Kingdom. You can find Nutella all over the place, but they don't have peanut butter. And so it's all the common things like how do they live that's different from us. And each time we go with the kids every 2 years, I talk to them a little bit about that before we go. And then as we're coming home, as we're on our way back, I'm like, well, what did you notice that's different? And it's just interesting to hear them talk about, my daughter, when she was 10, before we went, all she wanted to see was the Eiffel Tower, the Eiffel Tower, the Eiffel Tower, the Eiffel Tower. We get in the plane to fly home and go, Ainsley, 10 years old, what was your favorite part of the trip? the Swiss Alps, right? If you had to go move out of the United States and go one place, where would you? The Swiss Alps. That's where I would live. That's what she says. At the age of 10. Now, we could drag her up here and see what she says now, because in fact, when you said this, I should have put her name on the list, and you should have invited her, because she's done most of the national parks at this point with one of her friends, and she really enjoys a lot of stuff. But for me, that's what it is. It's just about being able to see things that you only read about in books.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. Jeff, you've been nodding a lot, so I'm going to let you jump in next and just sort of add on to that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with Greg more in terms of just, when you travel and you really realize how connected we all are. It doesn't matter what part of the globe you're in, or where you might find yourself. The commonalities that exist around the globe are inspiring and energizing, and are really great to bring back with you, and to me are far more valuable than any souvenir you're going to pick up right in any sort of shop. That value, that perspective on life that you can really get traveling by yourself. I do a lot of solo travel, which is a cool way to kind of push boundaries in a multitude of ways, right? And to really see the world in ways and through eyes that you don't necessarily see here when you're living your own life and focusing in on the things that you need to do. So as Greg was talking, it was giving me flashbacks to some of the places that I've been, and some of the experience I've been able to do. Some of the cool things for me are still having those connections with people around the globe. One of the things that I mentioned doing was trekking to Everest Base Camp. And not only am I still really good friends with my guide from that trip, Milan is his name, even met some people along the way as you're doing this trek, and still have connections to this day. Or being in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and staying in hostels and making really good friends there, and having those connections that, again, bridge beyond just the adventure itself, and have created lifelong connections and very interesting conversations that, for me, really keep me grounded and keep me really focused in on that the world is small, and we're much stronger together than we are apart.
Yeah, did you find that the commonalities that you're mentioning, say you're in Thailand, is it because they're also fellow travelers, or is it more just like human things?
I think at first I thought it was going to be because we share something similar. We share the love for travel, but at the end of the day, I really think it goes down to that human connection, right? That we all have our own hopes, dreams, goals, and desires, and at the end of the day, when you can really kind of see what really makes us happy, that is what connects us. Another cool moment there in Thailand, I had the opportunity to make friends with the owner of this hostel. And so they took us to their family home and cooked us a meal. And just, those are the kind of things that go beyond just the love for travel itself, and really show that the genuine connection that can exist between us when we are willing to kind of bring down those barriers and get to know one another.
And I love that you mentioned that you have made connections that you have stayed with you. Obviously being on Everest, that had to be like a really profound kind of thing. But the idea that you would be in touch with your guide still is very cool to me. Like, I love that you make connections that are lifelong.
Yeah, it truly does, right? It's travel is such a thing that not only, I think, forces us as humans to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, right? And that uncomfortability really grows the opportunity to build those partnerships.
So Deb, I want you to weigh in now, because you seem like you have been all over everywhere. So tell us about that.
Well, gosh, I'm thinking of what I can add, because connections was a big thing for me, and also just what Greg was saying is, learning about others, and through learning about others, learning about ourselves. So we, my husband and I, started traveling pre-kids, but then when we had kids, we sort of decided this was something that we wanted to continue doing. So our first trip with our first son was when he was 9 months old, and we just kept going. We would just try to do a trip a year. And, I think what, we were hoping to give to our kids and to continue getting for ourselves is, you have the skills of planning that you need to use. Or I'm trying to add more things to what the other guys said, but organization. But then really you develop a sense of flexibility and resilience. And I think that's one thing when I think back to the trips that I got out of the trip, our travels pre-kids, and then, what we've given our kids is resilience to really, and when you need to think fast on your feet, what decisions are you going to make? And, also communicating with others, just what you're saying, the connections and finding connections, when you might think, gosh, what can we talk about? There's always something. And so we would often with the kids go to playgrounds, and that was a real fun place to meet other families and parents, and the kids would play with other children from other places, and that was really neat to have that experience. I'm also thinking about just wonder and awe of amazing places that are different from what's in your backyard. Both the big things like, the Eiffel Tower and, other things that we've talked about, places that we've talked about, but also like little things like going into supermarkets. We always go into a supermarket wherever we go, just to, see what's there and compare what's the similar, what's different. I think you're talking about that with, the peanut butter and the Nutella and things like that. Places like Japan, it's just, wild because there are similarities, but there's a lot of differences. And it's just really interesting to go and see how other people live.
It's interesting that you mentioned the going to parks. So the last time we went to Paris, we had an opportunity to go to, and I need to look up the name of the park. We had an opportunity to go to a park in Paris and do a concert. Well, while we were there, it's basically what Central Park was modeled after. Mm-hmm. They have a zoo there. They have rides for the kids. They have they actually have a lot of places where you can just go and sit. There's a big Louis Vuitton like conference visitor center that he designed that's right there, and it looks kind of like Noah's Ark, to be honest. Yeah. But it's interesting because as we were there and I was looking at the layout of it, and there's just people everywhere. Right. Yeah. And the amount of people that showed up to watch a bunch of kids from Florida do a concert and buy a sandwich from the cart and then lay down on the grass and eat a sandwich, like with no cell phone in sight.
Yeah.
Is to your point about just the value that they have on family and the time that they spend. And again, for me, as the kids are playing their concert, I'm sitting around stupefied at how many people showed up to a concert in Paris, France to listen to some, group of high school kids but again, just the scale of the park and how nice it was, and then again, drawing that correlation between, well, this was here first and then New York City came along, And so those are the kinds of things that I really like as well.
Yeah, it's fun going to different places and really noting the connections and the similarities of different cultures. The onsens in Japan, and then there's the baths in Budapest, and then there's the baths in Baden-Baden, Germany. It's just so that's water. There's music. Art, it's just all the different connections. We're so intertwined, and it's really interesting to see those connections.
Yeah, you're both making me think of, so I was just in New Zealand in November of this past year and went to a supermarket, right, just to get some snacks. And there was a little band playing outside, playing some Christmas music. And of course, being a trumpet player, I had to go listen, and they stopped playing. I went over to the band leader and started making conversation with him. And turns out he had actually studied in Nebraska. And all of a sudden we started knowing some people. There I am on the other side of the globe, down in Middle Earth, and
Middle Earth,
just by virtue of a happen chance conversation at a supermarket. You're able to bond not only over music, right, that commonality, but also turns out you might even know some people, and it's incredible when you're willing to have that conversation, what it'll do and open up.
Yeah.
Well, and Greg, to your original point, like it makes the world a smaller place, and you realize the connections and that. And I feel like one of my concerns is for, there are people who never leave their little small town where they are, and that's fine. But like, I wish for them to broaden their horizons. And so this is part of why I wanted to, is that I feel like you get a different, I know that when I left the country for the first time and went to Europe and came home, I was a different person. And I literally looked at everything around me where I lived differently from there on out. And I mean, I just feel like this is really profoundly important for people. Even if you're just going to Chicago, you don't have to go to Paris. But I feel like, Greg, you know what I'm saying? Like I literally, my entire context for everything around me was shifted.
Yep. No. And, I think that that's the thing for me is for one thing, I'm just going to use my first trip out to the Grand Canyon as an example, so we can stop talking about being on another continent for a little while. Mm-hmm. We went to the Grand Canyon. We drove to the Grand Canyon at night from Vegas because we flew into Vegas, drove, and it was dark. Like, and here on the East Coast, there's street lights all along I-75 and I-95 and I-85. You pick it, it's got lights, right? And there is an exit and a gas station every 3 miles. Well, out west, the next when we were driving back from Grand Canyon to Vegas to get ready to go home, is 73 miles to the next exit. And no kidding, you pull off and it looks like Radiator Springs. Like Ainsley and my daughter and I were cracking up because she's about 14 at that time. And I was like, I just kept looking around going, this is so just surreal from you get west of the Mississippi and really out of Texas, because Texas is even still got, but you get out Arizona and in Nevada, and the exits are few and far between, And here we have, if you were on my Facebook, we have Boosie's, and out there they got something, what it's called, Bigfoots or Lightfoots, but they use a Sasquatch as their is their mascot. Sasquatch in Slim Jims.
Yeah. So. Well, the country is, very diverse. We have a lot, and just in our country, it's amazing. We just decided we're going to just try to start going here in the U.S. to different states, and to pick something. What is it about that state that makes it unique? And just because over the past couple of decades, I have been thinking further abroad, and now I'm sort of thinking there's so much rich culture here. Different foods, different national parks, different grocery stores.
Well, we took my 81-year-old mother-in-law with us when we went to see the Grand Canyon, and it's the first time she'd ever been west of the Mississippi of her entire life. And she's standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, and she looks over at me and she goes, this should be required for every American to come in, because she's like, pictures in a book don't do it justice. Mm-hmm. She's like, the federal government should give everybody $3,000 and to go see the Grand Canyon. It's like at some point in your life, you can write it off your taxes. And I was like, well, all right.
Yeah.
So
we have a lot of impressive things just right here in the States.
We do.
And you can
and like Jeff, I know you see a lot of the country through, I just went drum corps tour. I felt like I saw a lot of stuff, but I saw a lot of gymnasiums and football fields and cornfields and practice fields and looking for the nearest Burger King, Yep.
Yeah. But even there, you to that exact point, getting to just such unique parts of the country. And I'll never forget playing a trumpet in a meat locker in Wisconsin, because that's where we were. And that was the thing to do. And there really is. And I think it's even important to think, even if you don't leave your own state, even within your own region, there can be different experiences you can have. And I was lucky enough to live in Arizona for 9 years, and my goodness, just the diversity that existed in one singular state, right? You can be in 110 degrees and drive 2 hours north, and you get to 12,000 feet of elevation, right? And just the differences that can exist right down the highway from you, and what that does in terms of opening up your eyes, I think is a really cool challenge for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and Tim, you and I live in the same state. And did you know that so Scotty and I went to San Antonio, and there's these caverns underground that we went and found that are about 20 minutes outside of San Antonio, because we try to do unique stuff, and we found them, and we went and wandered around in this underground cave with stalactites and stuff all over the place for about 4 hours. Did you know there's some underground caves here in Florida and where there's no hills and all flat land?
I've heard of such things, but I have not been there.
Well, you should get your hat and go. It's been long enough. You've
Agreed.
lived in Florida. I'm sorry to say, you've lived in Florida long enough. Get you one of them little caveman hats and get in there.
Go splunking.
Splunking. It'll go good with your beard.
I'm not sure I'm really made for spelunking, but I do. Your point is getting out of town. Deb, you were going to say something before we jumped in here.
Oh, that thought is gone. I went into a cave with splunking.
Well, and going back to sort of the original premise is, I feel like people's lives can be very small, and everybody that's not just like you can seem really scary. And I feel like we have a lot of that going on right now. Like, well, this person doesn't think like me or look like me or act like me or doesn't live around a place like mine. And so I have to be scared of them. And I feel like that's like the first thing that just gets chopped right away. It's like you realize, okay, especially if you're somewhere like where they're speaking a different language or whatever, and you're like, okay, these people are completely differently. I'm a place I don't know anybody, but you know what? I'm okay. And they're nice, and I'm communicating with them somehow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the first big thing. I don't know, Deb, you've been a lot of places. Would you agree with that? Like, that's like, you tell your kids that.
Well, I think about travel a lot, and I think about what gets in the way of people traveling. I mean, clearly there's, it takes some resources to go. You need to book a place to stay. And even if you're camping, that's still, you need to make a reservation. And, if you're going in a car, it's gas, transportation, things, so there's resources that, but, there usually most places you can go, you can find some place to stay and, save up and make it work. But, I think the thing that I was going to say is that it's a risk to travel. There's risks with it. And I think that it takes a lot to have somebody, say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this trip, even if it's to, 4 states away or whatever. There's a risk in taking, that, is my car going to break down, or, if I'm going in an airplane, is there going to be a long line to get through security? And oh my goodness, what if I have like something bigger than 3.3, liquid? So there's risks. And so people need to be brave, and one of the things that I started thinking a while back was that pretty much every trip we go on, something goes wrong, something's going to happen, and we're going to forget something. One time it was my passport. I left it at home, and I got to the airport and I didn't have my passport. It was in our photocopy machine because I had gotten a new passport, and I was making a copy of it. And in making copy, I took the copy, but left the actual passport in the photocopier. So anyway, that was a big one. So, but something always sort of, goes wrong. But usually those things are things that are not going to get in the way of your adventure and, not get in the way of having a good time, whatever that is for that person who's traveling. So, it does take a risk to travel. And so it's sort of finding out for each person, what is it that's most concerning to you, and sort of that's where the resilience comes in, that you're going to be okay, and why are you traveling? Why do you want to go? What is your goal? And is it for relaxation? Is it for historical things you're looking at, or architecture, or the arts, whether it be music or the museums? Is it adventure, the traveling in terms of hiking and whitewater rafting or spelunking or whatever it is. So those are all questions that I always ask myself, why am I doing this? And that informs where I'm going, and then what risks are there. And that, there goes the planning and things like that. But it is hard for people. And so I think that that's something to think about, even with kids, what is it? What's getting in the way, and what benefits can you get, and how can you get over your concerns so you can get there?
Tim, you've met Shivam. And I can't remember if he told you the story about the first time he went out to Zion National Park with two of his friends.
I think it involves some sort of dangerous creature, right? It's like
it was a deer. So he takes off. So he goes to Zion National Park, and he's out there with two friends that are like 18 years old. They just graduated high school. And so he goes out there, they rent a car in Vegas, they drive up to Zion, and they're driving at night, and this deer runs out in front of them, hits the car, and wrecks the thing. Absolutely wrecks it. Well, they're in the middle of nowhere. There's no cell phone tower. There's no homes anywhere. They're on this road at night. He said it's starting to get pretty cold. And so they're sitting on the side of the road. They're like, well, it was like about 7 miles, the last town we saw. We could start walking that way, but we're out here. They've got a rental car. They don't really so he's 18 years old, and they're sitting there, and he's like, we're just standing there thinking, what are we going to do? No one's got cell phone, anything. And a truck comes up the road, and the guy pulls up and goes, y'all having some trouble? And so it's they end up going with this guy. Now, the thing I've left out, and I wish Shiv was here, because I've said this to him. I'm not talking about him out of turn, but Shiv's Indian and not Native American. His family's from India. And so I'm like, he's like, you don't, and both of his friends are from other countries as well. And he's like, you don't know some guy just in the middle of the night, and you're, a brown person, and you don't know how that's going to go. But he said the guy turned out to be really nice. He's like, well, hop on in the truck. I'll take you on up the road. I'm building this house up the way, and they got Wi-Fi there, and you can use it to. And so these three kids hop in this truck with this guy, and they ride for 30 minutes. They get there. The interesting part of it all is they ended up borrowing a car from him to get to one town where that guy's brother, who lived in Vegas, then picked them up and drove them back to Vegas so they could get another rental car from the rental company. And what he's like, and he's like, to this day, now it's been 6 years. He's like, to this day, he calls me once a year just to check in.
Yeah.
They made a friend. And so that all goes to your point, Deb. You just never know what you're going to run into. And Tim, back to your point about, like, I talk to him about it all the time, because Shiv does lots of interesting stuff. He, as he travels to the swampland in Louisiana to catch snakes because he studies snakes. And I talk to him all the time about, here you are, this young man whose family's from India. I was like, do you ever? He's like, oh yeah, of course. He's like, I get concerned, and he's like, but I just pay attention to my surroundings. He's like, and he said, I've never really run into anyone who's been mean to me or out of place. He's like, I'm always been pleasantly surprised about any fears I might have about what might happen. And it doesn't he goes wherever. And so I'm like, you got your Bass Pro Shop hat to throw on before you get out of the car. And he'll be, oh yeah, I packed it, and so, because he's just a really nice guy. And so, but he likes to travel and do stuff. And I, of course, don't want anything to happen to him, because he's a very smart young man. And of course, I live vicariously through him. My first trip to Zion National Park, I made sure he went with us so he could steer me clear of any.
Well, you learn through travel that most people want to help each other. Most people are kind, and I have examples where most people are good and want to help people out. So we've helped people, we've been helped. It's and I think that through travel, when you put yourself out there and be brave and go, you start to have the confidence that you can trust other people.
Yeah.
And I think trust is another thing that I've been thinking about a lot with travel, is that, you do gain the confidence that you can trust other people, and that there's a lot of good people out there.
Tim, do you want to talk to us about how long ago was it that you spent an entire summer living in Venice?
Me?
Yeah, didn't you go and spend like 3-4 weeks, like about 10 or 15 years ago? Didn't you go to Venice and stay there for maybe it was 3 or 4 weeks?
No, I've not ever been able to go for that long a time. I did go to Venice and stay for a week.
Oh, an entire week. That's pretty long.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, I'm going to come back to some points that I want to make for everything.
I just have noticed that you wanted to have this show and you haven't shared one story yet.
But I'm the moderator and the facilitator.
No, this is give and take. It's a discussion.
Well, I hope I didn't feel like I was dodging things. I feel like
I don't think you're dodging. I just think you're just sitting on the sideline. And I know you've been some fun places now. Let's have it.
I enjoy listening. Well, yes. And so one of the things we're going to do tonight, everybody, if you're still watching, thank you so much. And please type in places that you've been that you love if you'd like to in the comments. I did ask everybody to come with the place that they love the most that they've been, that if I could snap their fingers and send them there immediately. And for me, it would be Venice, Italy. So since you brought that up, I will go ahead and say that part. I made the first trip to Italy and we spent 3 days in Venice. And then we went down to Florence and Rome. And of course, we loved that very much too. But we were so stunned by Venice. It's just unbelievable to me. It's like I just can't believe how beautiful it is. Everywhere you look is like a postcard. You can't take a bad picture. And I just found it the most enchanting place ever. And so the next trip, we did plan to spend a whole week in Venice. And that was something that I would recommend to anyone, is maybe not on your first time abroad or your first time to a place, but when you have the great luxury of spending time, we felt like we lived like the people in Venice lived, right? For a week, we went down to the store, we bought our food, we cooked it in our apartment, all that stuff. But we got to spend time and we didn't feel like we were in a hurry to try to see everything. And we just got to be there. And I know that you guys have hopefully had that experience, but I found that incredibly nice. We got to know some people in shops that we knew and we saw each day, or, we had a very calm, leisurely time. My favorite thing about Venice is just to wander around and get lost, which is not hard in Venice. Like you're wandering around and you take a turn and all of a sudden you dead end into the water. This happens all the time. And I love that experience of just meandering around, and it's so beautiful. And you just sit down and you watch the gondola go by maybe. And like, the idea that it was so luxuriously slow and calm and peaceful. And Venice is a very quiet place too, which I really like. There's no cars and motorcycles or anything. It's very, very quiet. And I found it incredibly magical. And the best cheese sandwich of my life was sitting in a square in Venice. And I mean, I don't know what the cheese was. I don't know what the bread was. I don't know if it was the wine I was having with it, but like, I will never forget that cheese sandwich as long as I live. So to me, it was special because I wasn't in a hurry to see and check everything off my list. But I had time to just really soak it up. Yeah. So that's my story. Deb, I'm so taken by the fact you keep talking about how brave, how bold it is. And I think that that's part of it, is like we all like doing drum corps was something that made me realize what I was capable of and that I could do things I never imagined I could do. But I think travel's in that same boat, right? Like you realize, oh my gosh, I'm capable of so much more than I realized. I'm really brave. Jeff, I think you're really brave when you're traveling by yourself. I want to encourage everybody to do that.
Yeah.
But like that seems especially bold.
It definitely was scary. The first country I went to solo was Thailand, and you mentioned, arriving someplace and I do not speak Thai, and needing to find a way to get to the first place that I was sleeping, and it definitely was an experience, right? Navigating that, but once I did it, that first night, I'll never forget getting to the hostel the first night, and instantly that fear had already gone away because, Deb, you mentioned it. Everybody wants to help. And I think once you really understand that and you're coming from a genuine place, right, that fear just dissipates. And then you get hooked. The first time you do it,
Get the bug.
now you want more of it because you're just like, okay, this is awesome. I'm okay. yeah, something's going to go wrong, but I know that I'm going to be able to communicate and figure out how I need to get whatever it might be. In Thailand, I actually crashed a moped. And that was, I'd always want to rent one. I'm going to rent it. I'm going to rent it. I'm going to rent it. Rented it. Within the first 5 minutes, I had crashed it. And
Oh dear.
More important there is that everybody was very helpful and very, wanted to make sure that I was okay and took care of me.
And you were their dinner time story that night. Isn't that crazy, man?
You won't believe what happened.
What happened to you today? This crazy white guy crashed it.
You made somebody else's day.
Were you okay?
I was fine. It was all good. I wasn't going too fast. I literally had just pulled out of the hostel, and I'll say it, I hit a parked truck. I mean, that's embarrassing, but that's what happened. And
yeah, but I love that you talked about how, because I actually, when you said that, something resonated in me, because I will tell everybody, truth thing, like I'm always really nervous when I'm heading out. But what's always interesting is like into the first day, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be all right. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting. Like, I guess the anticipation of, well, I don't know where I'm going and what's going to happen, and I've never been there, all that. But it's funny how quickly it shifts for me every time when I realize, oh, I'm okay. Does anybody else resonate with that sort of phenomenon?
Oh, yeah. I need to get to the airport and get on the airplane. And once I'm on the airplane, I'm fine. It's going through security. And then, once I'm past security and then, on the airplane, I'm all good. But yeah, no, it's definitely, and I've traveled a little bit, and it's like, I need to just get seated on that airplane, and then, then I'm all right.
I'll tell you, for me, and if she were here, she'd shake her head. Like I hate to travel by myself. I like my wife to go. She's my travel buddy. I have zero interest in going to see anything where I can't take her with me, or it's just the way I am. The whole trip is so much more enjoyable for me when she's along. I used to have a position in the district office, and I got sent all over this country to make presentations and meet with people and do stuff. And she never went with me on a single one because I was gone so much. And she'll tell you I was a miserable human being. And I got to go to San Diego, California. I got to go to Salt Lake City, Utah. I went to Boston a bunch of times. I went to New York City, and I just didn't enjoy it. I like being able to have her with me so that when I do have time, even if I'm working to do something, I get to do it with her. So.
Well,
Back to what Deb was saying before, I brought up the thing about having Shiv go to Zion National Park with us the first time. I was going to say, Deb said, if there's someone who's gone before, go with them. If there's not, call them and ask them what they did. There's a couple years ago, we wanted to do the coast of California. Everybody says, drive the Pacific Coast Highway. And so we did. And so, we're both educators, and we do fine. But as I started doing the trip, I was calling people who had maybe done it before, and then I looked online. But because I become the trip planner, to fly into San Francisco and then drive down, which is the way most people do it. They start up north, and then they work their way down to Los Angeles, and they fly out of Los Angeles. The flight into San Francisco and out of LA was about $200 or $300 more a piece. So what I did was I priced it out. So we flew into LA because it's cheaper to fly into LA. And then we went all the way up to San Francisco, and we finished our time in San Francisco. We drove over to Oakland and flew home because the plane ticket was $150 each cheaper. Mm-hmm. So, and that's like those little things that you figure out by either reading up a little bit or calling someone who's done it before. Mm-hmm. And so, we wanted to see the redwoods. So we found a state park out between Carmel and when we were driving from Carmel up to San Francisco for our last 3 days, we made a little tour. It was a little bit, maybe 30 minutes out of the way, but we went and we spent a whole day in a state park looking at the tallest, widest redwood trees they were massive. And we took our granddaughter Sequoia this last summer in August, and I was more impressed with the ones I saw in the state park than I was the sequoias, to be honest, to be perfectly frank. And it was less crowded. I got to see more trees.
I'm taking notes.
Well, and apparently there's Muir Woods above San Francisco.
Ooh, yes. Yeah.
Don't. And the beautiful part is this is a fun story. So there we are walking all over San Francisco because we want to see the Golden Gate Bridge, right? I mean, we walked it. We walked from our hotel in downtown all along the seaport and all along the bay. We could not see the Golden Gate Bridge until we got all the way up to the park and we're standing right on top of it. We were standing on the bridge. We're like, oh, here it is. We could not see. The fog was in. So, yeah, there's that.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the San Francisco fog. Yeah.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, that's the fun thing about, I mean, sometimes it's a disappointing thing, but you never know what's going to happen.
So you mentioned, several of you mentioned in passing the sort of the planning. I also think that's the other really thrilling part about all of this is like the anticipation and learning and reading and researching and buying the guidebook and getting ready. Like that's part of the thrill of it. Deb, like it makes the trip last a lot longer than just the time on the trip.
Oh yeah. I love planning for trips. You know, like Greg said, I love, talking with people here, friends. Sometimes I'll even put it out on Facebook, like who's been here, and where do you have a restaurant recommendation or what's your favorite place? I love hearing what people's favorite place is, in a city or in a country or wherever, because we'll actually try to put that into our itinerary. I take those things seriously, and some of our really cool places that we've been to, actually traveled to, are just a random conversation on an airplane, a connection, and I'll be talking with someone. I'm like, oh, are you gonna go on, or are you staying here? And they're like, oh, we're staying here. We're going to this town. It's really awesome. I mean, we've actually planned a whole trip around that. Yeah. So, cool. It's the planning the trip is real. I love. We usually try to plan a trip in a triangle. This is a new thing of mine. We try to, if we're going to a city like or a country like Spain, I like to pick like 3 different places, city, and then someplace outside, someplace that's more country, or there's something different about it, or something, a national park or a state park or something like that. Like we did that in Sweden. We went pretty far outside of Stockholm, up on the Norway border, like just because there was a waterfall there, national park. So we try to sort of, because you learn new things and meet new people and see different things when you sort of get out of the tourist zone.
Yeah, and you just mentioned something that I had a great experience with, and Jeff, I know you have stories about this where somebody recommended a restaurant. Like we got to know a shopkeeper in outside of Venice. Oh gosh, Murano, and like we're in this shop, and he's like, "Oh, have you guys had lunch?" And then he gave us directions, and I mean, I can tell you, like that's what you want to find out is like where the locals eating and what's so great. So Jeff, I know that on your travels, you have had people say like, you got to go over here and have this food.
Oh, absolutely. And it is, you gotta make friends with the locals, because they know the good spots that are not in the tourist spots. Right. And that's where really good food exists. I kind of mentioned in Thailand, making friends with the owner of the hostel. And so they actually ended up taking us to their family's restaurant. The spiciest Thai food I've ever had in my life. I didn't know what Thai spice was at the time, and so here I am just dumping it all in, and they're getting ready to laugh at me, but just super, super delicious. Or one of my favorite spots is Queenstown, New Zealand. Best burger I've ever had in my life.
Really?
There, and it was all because I went bungee jumping, and talking to the person who was helping me get to that ledge and jump, was recommending, hey, when you get back to town, you've earned this. Go to this spot. It's a great burger. Get this exact burger with these ingredients, and make sure you ask for this. And I sat at a little park right next to this lake and ate it. And it's exactly because I asked, or was talking to somebody that was local to the area who was able to recommend it for us.
Awesome.
So Jeff, we're starting to get near the end of our hour. I do want everybody to talk about their one favorite spot. So I know it's really hard for those of you that have been a million places, but Jeff, I'm going to ask you, you may have mentioned it already, but if I could snap my fingers and you were there, where would you want to be?
It is very, very difficult. But I will still go with Chiang Mai, Thailand. Specifically, there's an elephant nature park that exists there. I could go and just live at the preserve and take care of the elephants all day. And just the cuisine and the authenticity of the people that are there, and just the connections that exist, and the street markets, and the just the vibrancy that exists. It's a place that is still very near and dear to my heart.
I love it. So Deb, I'm going to come to you. Snapping my fingers. I mean, you've been so many places.
This is just a painful question for me to answer, but but I will answer it. And I'll answer it concisely. If I had to be anywhere right now, I'd go to San Sebastian, Spain. It was one of our favorite places, and I always said I wanted to go back there. So that's where I'd probably go. Tell
us about it. Why do you love it?
Oh, well, it might have been just a timing thing. I feel like that's a lot of things with, and it's just a feeling that, that we had when we were there. And so again, like with timing, I think, it could be a lot of different places, but the tapas, the food scene there, was just so exciting and fun, really interactive. You're just going up and picking tapas and just saying, what this, and this, and you're with a bunch of other people. What I loved about it was that the beach is beautiful, and then there's just people walking, and intergenerational. That's what I remember. So it's been a while. It was 2013 when I was there, so it's been a while. But just the intergenerational, just people watching, and people from, all over Spain and elsewhere. It's probably changed a lot, actually. I don't really know, but it just was a really wonderful feeling there.
Well, and I like that you're describing it that way, because that's part of it, everybody. Is like it is partly being in that place, but part of it is like this moment in time in my life with the right people, or the right, like, that's part of what makes this magical memory that we're describing. But that's okay. I mean, it doesn't matter how this moment happened. But I love the way you described that. That makes me want to go. Like all these conversations do. I want to go to all these places. Greg, I'm going to ask you to name your spot. Where would you want to be if I could snap my fingers?
I don't want to be that guy but do I have access to a vehicle, or am I stuck there? Am I allowed to leave, or is it just for like a day, or are we there for a week? Because I'm a little ADD, as you know, so my answer changes, because
what do you want to do?
Most beautiful place I've been is Switzerland, and you have Lake Geneva and Zermatt, where the Matterhorn is. It's beautiful.
What could you
But it would be.
Wait. Let's say this. You get to decide the conditions. Okay.
I think I still would pick London, England, because I'm such a big history buff, and the fact that the Roman wall still runs through London, England, and you can go stand on a wall built by the Romans, and the Tower Bridge is there, and there's castles, and you can walk the city if you want, but they have great transportation, and there's a lot of culture there. And like if you said, well, you gotta leave the United States, that'd be it. But Switzerland's just so beautiful. If you have a chance, everyone should visit it.
I think you said 2 places.
It's impossible. I told you I'm ADD, Deb.
No, the rules aren't that strict here. I just want to inspire people to travel, and I wanted to just share some of our favorite memories. So I think we're wrapping this up. So I'm going to ask each of you to say anything you want to in wrapping up the conversation, like a big takeaway or something you want to encourage someone to be bold and go travel. However you want to speak your final thought. I'll just say, everybody, you will be a different person when you start to travel and you see the world in a different way. And this is really important, and our world needs this right now. So I encourage you, whether it's just taking a day trip on the weekend and going somewhere, or whether you can actually book a trip and go and save your money and have a wonderful time. Whatever it is for you, just start to travel, whether by yourself or with somebody. Jeff, I'll go to you first. Final thoughts you want to leave everybody with?
I'm going to share a quote that I think about when I'm traveling. It's do one thing each day that is so far outside of your comfort zone, you don't know how to get back. And so if you're considering traveling, right, if you're considering any of that, that could be a small step at home, doing some activity that maybe you've been thinking about that is exciting, and that might start to really catch that spark for you. But I'm confident that as you take that next step and you travel to another state or to another city, to another country, yes, you'll feel that fear, but as we've all kind of mentioned, on the other side of that fear is going to be something that you'll never be able to pay for or to buy, because the value is just so immense. So do it, take the jump, and you'll never regret it.
That is wonderful advice. And Jeff, I want to say, man, thank you for the great experiences that you give everybody that you work with. And I'm looking forward to seeing the magic you guys are going to work with the Mandarins this summer. Because we just had a recent conversation with Becca Anderson. If you guys didn't see that, you should check that out on YouTube. And Jeff, thank you for what you're doing for those students and the experience you're going to give them.
Thank you.
So Deb, I'm going to let you go. Final thoughts you want to leave everybody with.
All right. I love Jeff's. I think I'll add on to that and say that the memories that you are given from travel just stay with you and, forever. And, I know that for myself that, they give me comfort and they give me joy, and I can share them with other people, and other people I can hear theirs experiences. And so it's a real gift, I think, both that I give myself and my family and it, the people around us. So it's just a connection that I'll always have. And so that's why I keep on going. And I encourage everybody to go and get their own memories out there.
I love that. You're very inspiring. You've been so many places. And Deb, it's wonderful to connect with you after all this time and have this wonderful, fun conversation. It feels really great to see you again.
You, Tim. It's great.
And I also want to say, I think it's really exceptional and wildly cool that you and your husband take your kids and give them this experience, and it's become just a part of what they do and what they know life to be. And I think that's just an incredible gift that you're giving them in a view of the world that I find really inspiring. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
All right, Greg, final thoughts from you.
Go. Like Tim mentioned, just go. Start by going to the next county over and see some. I'm going to push Tim to go see the caverns here in Florida.
You do not know how claustrophobic I am.
Fine, you can get out. Just put a rope around your waist, you'll be fine. It's not like you're getting a tank and going down into the water, Tim. It's right there. You're fine, dude. It's fine. It's Florida. You'll be able to dig your way right out. So, but go. I always think of, when Scotty and I were younger, we go, oh, we can't afford that. Oh, we can't afford that. Oh, we can't afford that. Guess what? I can't afford it now. But I go back to something my mom said to me when she and I first got married. Oh, when are you going to have a grandkid? When am I going to have a grandkid? I'm like, Mom, I can't afford a kid. She's like, if you wait till you can afford to have children, you'll never have them, is what she said. And so that applies to going and seeing something. If you're going to wait till you can afford to, quote unquote, afford to do it, you're probably never going to go unless you're, making tons of money. So, plan for it. And again, like Jeff said earlier, start small, do something that's close by so that you start to acclimate toward doing that and getting used to being out of your comfort zone. And then find something that someone has been to before. Pick something that is going to be a home run. Go drive the coast of California. Go up and drive the coast of the Northeast. Get on a plane and go to Ireland or London. People speak your language. Yeah. It will be easier if you run into trouble. And then after that, see what happens. Gotta go. Go do it.
I love it. Well, this conversation has been just as fun as I hoped it would be. I've really enjoyed this. I hope that anybody that's watched this is going to be inspired by it. I'm sure they will. And if you're watching this, whether live or later, and you thought it was a helpful conversation, share it with somebody and let them know about it too. So Deb and Jeff and Greg, you guys were just wonderful. Thank you for being a part of this tonight.
Thanks a lot. It's a ton of fun.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, everybody.